partnerships through Librarianship in information literacy. So we have Christina Deptulski, Assistant Librarian at Goodwin College, and Gavin, who's the Assistant Professor with the Child Study Program at Goodwin College. And they're going to talk about how they collaborated to bring the embedded librarian model to the early childhood program. Okay, so let's welcome them. Oh, yes, we are welcoming you, but Christina wanted me to also say, mark your calendars for next June 17th at the University of Hartford. That's the next Information Literacy Etiquette Conference. Okay.
Yeah, we do. Is it working?
Is it working? Okay. Okay. So there are handouts. So if anyone doesn't have one, they're on that front table. There's more of them. And so this is our agenda. It's a quick 1-hour session. We're going to do introductions of who you are in a couple minutes. We have a think, pair, share, and debrief. And then we have an overview of Christine's work with our program in my class and several other classes. And we're going to end with a small group learning session with some goals for you. And hopefully you'll leave here today with some new ideas for embedding this into your classrooms and the library and into the classrooms at your colleges. So this is you, Christina.
Oh, and my question is, who's in the audience? It helps to know who's in the audience. Who here is a faculty member? Okay, we've got a few. Who here is an academic librarian? How about a school media specialist? Are there any others? Okay, so as we ask the questions, think about your role in your institutions or where you work and kind of restructure the questions to accommodate your particular role.
So I wanted to just show you what we use a lot in the early childhood program and the education part, and that is the KWLH chart. Some of you might recognize the KWL chart, which is what we used to use in the past. So that is, what do you currently know about a topic? What do you want to know? And at the end of the session, what have you learned? Our goal is hopefully that you'll have 1 or 2 new ideas that you take away with you. But in this digital age, this is a very important one to add to your charts at all levels. How will I learn more? Because as we heard this morning, it's changing every day. So we need to prepare students that they'll need to know how to learn more every day. So we really have put this on our chart. A lot of educators are now using this. When I go to national conferences, this is what is appearing. So how will I personally learn more about the subject that I'm teaching or what I want students to learn? So this is an activity called Think, Pair, and Share. So you are going to think about, what do you currently know about information literacy? And you're going to first quietly think to yourself, jot it down if you need to, okay? And then you're going to turn to the person sitting beside you and share it. All right. If there's an odd number at your table, you could do 3 and 2. Okay, so now you have about 3 minutes to think, pair, and share. What do you currently know about information literacy? So, something you currently know about information literacy.
5 cents. 5 cents.
5 standards.
5 standards.
My partner and I were talking about prior learning and how the K-12 system doesn't have a set standard for what comes out as far as information literacy goes.
Okay.
So
prior learning on
hard for us
information.
to know where to start.
And I said, are you about the privacy streams?
The frames.
Six structural concepts.
It's a lifelong transferable skill.
Ah, lifelong transferable skill. Okay. Anyone else have anything they want to add?
Reporting on KPW already?
Yes.
I just have a worksheet for each class that's based on the assignment that the class is to do.
So you have a worksheet for each class?
Yeah, so that they're, applying what I've showed them.
Okay. So she uses a worksheet for each class that they're applying what they learned, what she showed them to do. Any other current practices or knowledge? I think that was it. All right.
Explain the 5 standards. Okay. Who said the 5 standards? Can you explain that for the rest of us?
Well, you asked what we know about information literacy.
Yes.
And we've been working with the 5 standards for a long time, so that was the first thing that came to my mind. And I know there's a new framework, and we're working with that, but we're still going to keep the 5 standards for a while.
Are you talking about the ACRL?
ACRL, Information Literacy Competency Standards for Higher Education.
Oh, okay. So can you describe that a little bit for the people who are not
Information literate.
who are not academic
Academic librarians, I'm sorry, yes. Let me see if I can remember them. 5 standards. What's the first one? Well, I know it's basically you identify your topic, search effectively, use the information, evaluate, use, and cite. Those are 5. I said use.
Yes. Thank you. So in other words, for the academic librarians, we have a certain framework that we follow where we have to, basically there are certain benchmarks that we should be teaching the students that hopefully by the end of their college career they will have achieved. Anyone else want to share any lessons that they taught? Any information literacy lessons that they taught? Yes?
We do an evaluation piece where we look at identifying authority and purpose and audience for popular, trade, and scholarly sources.
Okay. So identifying authority,
Purpose, audience, bias, you can go on and on.
bias, and on. So basically you're evaluating, showing them how to evaluate sources.
Right.
Go on to, so what, did you have a chance to talk about what you wanted to learn today, or?
Did you talk about your goals for today?
Why don't we do that next? So just take a minute or two to talk to the person next to you. Do you have any goals? Is there something you wanted to learn from someone else here today that might have that information? Do I have another volunteer who would like to record some of our goals? Volunteer?
I'll be a scribe.
She knows she's going to get something now. You do. What is your name? I'll pick the next. What is your name?
Naomi.
Naomi. So Naomi is volunteered to be our scribe this time. So some goals for that today. You want to bring the mic over?
Oh, sure.
Well, at least some of us at this table are interested in learning more about how to apply the new framework in ways that are relevant to our current situation.
Christine?
We were thinking more about this particular session when you asked that question, and our goals are to learn about the various types of embedded librarianship that are possible.
Thank you.
We're interested in understanding the steps that are involved in becoming, building those relationships with faculty and, developing an embedded librarian program.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to share?
All right, that's great. Thank you. And thank you, Naomi. You get to pick a goodie, too. All right, Christina, I think you're up.
We're doing the full group debriefing?
That's what we just did.
Okay. Sorry. All right.
So think, pair, and share is something I do a lot in my classes, is to get one student to talk to just one other student and use their critical thinking skills, and then that builds up to them doing small group with larger groups. So it's a great skill to use with some of the students that may come into some of your classes.
All right, so some of you asked how to develop the embedded librarian program within your school, within your library, and with your faculty or your staff or teachers. And so basically, my director, I'm an academic librarian, so my director approached me about doing an embedded librarian experience, and we decided that since I worked together closely with the ECE program, the Early Childhood Education program at Goodwin College, and I've been a librarian at Goodwin for quite some time, since 2007. So I was really familiar with the faculty, the students. I was very comfortable in my role, and I had done a fair amount of information literacy instruction. And so as I was reading more about embedded librarianship, they had mentioned that it is very helpful if you've done a fair amount of information literacy and you're very comfortable in that role, and that your director will be very supportive, that it's important that administration, your other librarians, and the students will be, supportive in this, and the faculty member you'll be working with, or the teacher, in your case, that you will be working with. So collaboration is key. We set up a meeting as we were discussing doing this. We set up a meeting with the library director, Marilyn Nolan, and with Kathy, and we discussed in detail, actually, about what my role was going to be. How involved was I going to be? So what we decided was that it was important for me to be in the syllabi, because this way the students can anticipate when they will be interacting with me and what we're going to be doing. So there's that expectation on them. They know when I'm going to be available and what topics we're going to be discussing, that they're going to participate as well. I did make tutorials, especially APA, citation tutorials, because this, as Kathy and I were discussing before we had the meeting with my director, that this is an area where there is some difficulty in text citations at the end, and she thought it was extremely helpful that I gave a lot of feedback about APA citations in the discussion boards, as well as, through, in the discussion boards, but you also sent them as I reviewed their papers in their mini research projects. They were all hybrid classes, so I came to some of their classes, as well as I participated in discussion boards, and I was reading as they were posting, and I had access as a assistant teacher and assistant instructor, so I had full access to everything that they were doing, even when I was not directly involved.
Right, every time I posted an announcement that got sent to students in Blackboard, it also went to Christina, so she could follow the thread of our class all semester long.
And I felt that was very important, because as the next thing says, touch base throughout the course. Kathy and I would get together frequently throughout the course and say, oh, this worked really well, or let's add this piece into, let's try to finagle this. Maybe you could do some grading for this particular project. So there was constant meeting. You have a question? Oh, no, okay. Build meaningful relationships. Being an embedded librarian, I really developed a close relationship with Kathy and with my director, because she was very involved in the sociology class, or the social studies class. And so, and I really started to develop close relationships with the students. Now, with this particular group of students, they liked to come in person. It was a hybrid, they were all hybrid classes, so we were online, and they were welcome to ask questions through the online class, but they chose to really ask questions in person. That's what they felt more comfortable with. Providing and receiving feedback is helpful. I tended to, when they came in person, get some feedback. I got feedback from Kathy, but as far as surveys are concerned, they had an awful lot of surveys that they had to fill out at the end of the course. So honestly, we didn't get a lot of information through the surveys at the end because they had so many that they were required to do. And please be mindful of the subject standards. Many of the standards that they have to do for your particular department that you're working with will align with the ACRL standards or with the standards for the school library media specialist.
And an example of that is our college is approved to deliver the early childhood teaching credential for folks working in community-based childcare centers. In order to do that, we have to be nationally accredited by the Early Childhood Association, which has professional standards for teachers. And one of those standards, we have skills that teachers have to use, APA citation, as well as that they can do research both in the library and online. And we have to show that our students are making progress in that area. Those are considered supportive skills. And when I checked, we use a online task stream system to run our data on those standards. And your standards are in there as well. So TaskStream tracks all national standards. They're already built in there. And I know the standards that we were looking at are in revision, but Christina, as Director of Library Services, will be able to use our data and run information on those standards as well on our students. So it actually will help both programs in reporting our data to our institutional effectiveness head. So that's important. For both departments.
Yes, for academic institutions, that is very important. And it shows in the framework the ACRL standards and how they lined up with what early childhood has to do. And so through TaskStream, you could do a variety of different things and they will line it up for you. But, keep in mind what the different subject areas or the different departments, what their standards are as well. So you can kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will. So building positive relationships. So what are the outcomes? The outcomes were that we were able to build much closer relationships with the students. So although I was working together with them as an embedded librarian, I also was very mindful of putting the information in the binder so that my other colleagues would be able to answer questions about the specific assignments that they were getting, because I'm not there all the time. I only work certain shifts. And like I said before, they weren't really asking questions through Blackboard. So they weren't really asking questions online. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of it if I wasn't available, that somebody else could answer the questions directly related to the assignments that they were doing. So that was very helpful that Kathy gave me the assignments up front. Not only was I part of her syllabi, she gave me the assignments up front so that I am able to disseminate that information. Yes, did you have a question? She asked, she said that she knows that the students weren't talking to me on Blackboard because it was probably public and they didn't want everybody to see it. Did I provide my email? Yes, I did provide my email, but the students weren't emailing me, and there was one particular group that had an issue with an assignment, and I tried to email them like crazy. I posted the information. They probably chose not to look at their emails.
Our population of students may not always have access to email when they're not on college, so you should know our students are all commuters. All right, our classes in ECE, they're all working full-time in childcare because they need to have a degree by 2017 in Connecticut to keep their job if they have state dollars coming in. Many of them are single moms. Many are English language learners. Many lack, as their students do, access to technology. So I do think there's a lot of reasons why email isn't always working for them. Many of them have trouble all the time using their college email. And I do not answer personal emails because then they're not seeing all the stuff they need to see from all the academic departments. So we have a lot of challenges around that. So they're more apt to come in and use the library because there's computers in the library, and there's folks like Christina that give them, Christina gives our students a lot of attention. They're actually very spoiled. If they actually make it to the library, they get lots of help.
And Kathy provides a lot of help as well when you come in person. So, and I think we were talking about it at the table today, that it's maybe the nature of their jobs, that they are interacting with people. That's their job. And with young children, you're kind of anticipating what they need based on what you're seeing and what you're hearing and the experiences that you're having. So that could be part of the reason why they prefer to have that one-on-one. Goodwin's considered a high-touch institution where it's based on personal relationships with the students. So they came in to ask questions directly related to their assignments just to get clarification. As we know, when we present something, it's an awful lot of information to absorb in one sitting or in one session. And they use the computers frequently. Like Kathy had mentioned, a lot of our ECE students, they either don't have computers at home or they don't have access to the internet because it's too expensive. And so there's not a lot, and many students have told me that they are not permitted to use technology in their centers. It is forbidden. So those are probably some of the reasons why it was harder to touch base with them on the computer. Yes?
If that's a recognized issue with your students, was it a department or an institutional decision to make them hybrid classes? And that's a good question. Why?
Okay. So many of you have just experienced a really bad winter. Our students travel from all over, and so one of the reasons we went to fully hybrid classes. So we have very few fully online in our program. There's a lot at the college, but we do our 2 developmental psychs fully online. Most of our other classes are delivered as hybrid. The reason we do that, it's actually a professor's option of how many are online and how many are on ground. So I'm teaching 2 classes right now, and my Reggio class is meeting 14 weeks on campus and 1 week online. In that online week, they're working on a portfolio development. And my other class, my admin and supervision, again, they're looking to be directors, so I expect them to be able to use the internet more if they're going to be the leader of a child care program. So they're probably on ground 10 weeks and online 5. Now I have colleagues that drive a lot further than I, and they tend to do half and half. And so in the winter months, if we have a snow day, if there's how many of you teach a class on Monday? Anyone here from the faculty side? Anyone teach Monday classes this past semester? They didn't meet until February, and our semester starts, we don't close. Okay, so our semester started right after New Year's, and our Monday classes did not meet until February. So basically, our students have learned now, they have class regardless of whether campus is open or not. So by making them all hybrid, the professor can get everything up in that shell and open it up. The other thing is, if a different professor teaches it next semester, all the content's there, and they can decide which weeks they want to do online and not. So there were a lot of advantages of doing the hybrid. It was more for convenience of access to resources.
And also, as we were teaching the course, with the outcomes was that I provided APA guidance and assistance. We talked about plagiarism, and that's all part of the ACRL framework, teaching them to be responsible digital citizens and to give credit where credit is due. This is a difficult concept for many students, not just in the early childhood program, and so there was an emphasis on putting the references at the end of the page as well as using in-text citations. Also learning how to use the databases, using keywords, Boolean searches, how to refine their search. And Kathy came up with the great idea of them creating their citation the night that I taught APA citation, how to use the databases, to go ahead and find those articles before I left and create their references page.
So in that scaffolding students learning, when we had it a little bit too open the first year, it didn't work. So in streamlining that, I actually gave them, they have to do a read aloud as a key assignment to meet their professional development standards. So this time we gave them the topic to research. Christina was there, I was there, we used the library and the computers, and before they could leave that night, they had to have 3 peer-reviewed articles on the topic. They had to start like 1 paragraph of the paper, and they had to have those 3 papers cited APA before they could go home. Then the following week or 2, they could finish their papers. So we really found that was more supportive than how we did it before. So they really could not leave that night until that task was done. And this is a 200 level course, but it has a key assignment for our accreditation in it. And we're only allowed 5 key assignments in our whole AS degree. And we have to show that they meet all these standards through those 5 assignments. So it's a pretty heavy-duty task that they have.
And through our constant collaboration, that is something that Kathy suggested. So that's why it's so helpful to continue to meet during the semester that you're working together. Also, they asked for technical assistance at the library and guidance and how to well, we covered that in class, but it's such a broad concept, how to evaluate resources and decide which ones are appropriate. And so that's what we did.
Next, right?
And so now I'm going to turn it over to Kathy again.
We've included some slides in there that really are for you as a takeaway, and if you have more questions, you could email us. But I've sort of embedded all the courses that Christina and I have collaborated on. So we did it in early language and literacy. I teach educational technology, so we embedded it there. We also embedded it in social studies, and actually the head of library services was our support there. Students really struggled with what was an appropriate source for a current event. And the current event had to be, under 60 days. And they really struggled. So some supports were put in place in the library to help them think about how they might find that. And so lessons learned, I know that this is also going to get posted, and Christine, you're going to have links for that?
Yes.
The Digital Commons. But because we only have an hour, we really want to close with a group activity for your table, and we're going to look at, and you can speak to the colleagues at your table, but what did you learn today, and how will you continue to learn? And again, another way that I keep my students engaged is that there are 4 tasks, so 4 folks at your table have a job. There's going to be a timekeeper, a recorder, a reporter, and a facilitator. Okay? And I think do we have 10 minutes? Is that what we said?
Yes, and then we were going to
And then we're going to
share.
debrief.
Yes.
Oh.
But if you could please, for the H section, reflect about how you would incorporate yourself in an embedded librarian experience. One thing you're taking away today, what did you learn? If you want to go ahead and post your stickies up here, what you learned today? Yeah. Yes, please. That's all right. If you did it on the same page, you just come peel it off and put it on the next page. Go ahead.
Be on 2 pages. Got it.
Are you the reporter? Oh, are we saying them?
We have reporters, right, at your table?
Yes, but I gave my answer.
Oh, okay. So reporters.
Can I have the reporters come up, please? Reporters?
Also, we're going to take your sticky notes
Here.
with us.
Should we hold it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So we can improve our session, see?
All right, they're going to report out, please, if you want to get the ball rolling.
Sure. So what we learned to have a successful embedded class takes mutual need between teacher and librarian, and we try to teach what others can't teach to the class. It's important that the library and teacher coordinates closely together, and that the administrative support needed to make faculty realize the value of their partnership. This is a shorthand. Wait a second. Is that all right? Okay. So.
Okay. So we didn't really kind of answer either of those questions. So here's what we talked about. We talked about the ways that we could the different kinds of embedding that could happen. We talked a bit about in on-ground classes, perhaps getting incorporated into the syllabus, including scheduled class visits, and having an office in the department with scheduled office hours, or even maybe a desk in the department that they'll let you sit in for 2 hours a week and be available to the students in that department. For online and hybrid classes, the obvious: incorporate yourself into the Blackboard shell and upload tutorials. What we got out of today, we talked about strategies for getting faculty to collaborate with librarians, which is always a nightmare, and we brought away a good sense of mutual therapy.
Oh, there. Okay, the questions that we answered are, one key point that we'll walk away with today, that embedded librarianship exists on multiple levels, at the program level, the discipline level, the actual course level. So there are a lot of ways to approach this. And how would we incorporate ourselves in an embedded librarian experience? First of all, it's going to start with outreach to faculty, outreach to administrators, trying to make those connections, and also the importance of collaboration. Collaboration throughout the semester is really important in these types of experiences.
Thank you, Dominic. And echoing what everyone already said, plus we spoke to integrating the relationship as a personal librarian, like sort of one-to-one mentorship, and echoing also utilization of some sort of management tool like the Blackboard. Right, those are takeaways to incorporate.
Thank you. Sorry, this is weird. I'm never amped. At our table, and for the key points that we are going to take away is very much the concept of cooperation. And in hearing a bit more about Goodwin, we also
that in the earlier conversation, we'll probably leave with some thought or hope to continue to think about technology equity and the fact that some students don't have as good of access to technology as other students, especially with us putting tutorials and things of that nature, and Blackboard, everything's online, so keeping that in mind. And in terms of reflecting on incorporating, developing a good elevator pitch and building relationships. Yeah.
Thank you all for that great cooperation at your tables.
Kathy and I also had the opportunity to present at our community day, and that's another way we got the word out to other faculty members as well as staff. So if staff was present, they could pass it on to the faculty members. And I'm sorry.
You should explain community day.
Yes.
So all employees of Goodwin College, basically we have 3 15-week semesters. In between each semester, there's 2 weeks. Students have 2 weeks off. Faculty and employees have 1 week off. So that's 3 weeks that were closed a year, and the week of Christmas and New Year's. So basically, the first day back each semester, all full-time employees are required to attend Community Day. And on Community Day in the morning hours, there are different sessions we have to attend. And that's when we presented this, and people selected which sessions they wanted to go to. So it was pretty exciting because Christina and I got to share it with a lot of other departments who were very interested in looking at this piece as well.
And now our director is working together with another librarian, and they are teaching they're doing 7 embedded experiences with the nursing department, because out of this experience, one of the professors from the nursing department became very interested.
Any other questions that Christina and I can answer for you? Well, I hope you enjoyed this afternoon. I know I had a great day. This is the first time I've attended this conference. Traditionally, I'm at a national conference the first week of June, so I can't usually get out 2 weeks in a row because I have to have someone teach my classes. And I enjoyed meeting all of you, so thank you. Oh, the Digital Commons.
Yes. The Digital Commons is at the bottom. This is the link. And probably if you looked on Google under the program, you have the handout with the PowerPoint on it. You'll probably be able to find it through Googling it as well. Thank you so much for your time.